He hated my habits, so I moved out petty revenge. The chipped mug was the final straw, I swear. Not that it was just the mug. It was the mug on top of the coasters under the perfectly spherical fruit bowl arranged. Naturally, according to some obscure color gradient Ethan found online, the fruit bowl sitting precisely 2 inches from the edge of the granite countertop. It was the culmination of months, maybe years, of tiny, insidious acts of domestic tyranny. Ethan loved order. Ethan needed order. And I appreciated a certain organized chaos. As a freelance graphic designer, inspiration struck at odd hours. My apartment before Ethan moved in reflected that. Sketches piled high, mood boards plastered on the walls, a vibrant mess that fueled my creativity. He called it clutter. I called it my workspace. It started subtly. "Amelia, honey, could you maybe put the mail in that designated tray? Sweetheart, wouldn't it be nice if we folded the towels this way? They stack so much neater." Cute at first, even endearing. I thought I was being a good girlfriend, accommodating his quirks. But then it escalated. He started moving my things without asking, rearranging my desk, color-coding my books, which, I might add, were perfectly fine in their semi-alphabetical, heavily influenced by which ones I liked more system. And then, the comments. Constant, low-level critiques disguised as helpful suggestions. Maybe if you just organized your time better, you wouldn't be up working until 3 a.m. As if my work ethic was the problem, not the fact that he was incapable of sleeping through the gentle click-clack of my keyboard. The chipped mug, a vintage find from a flea market, held my morning coffee. It had character. It had history. Ethan apparently found it an eyesore. One morning I woke up to find it gone. "Where's my mug?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Ethan was standing at the kitchen island, meticulously wiping down the already spotless surface. "Oh, that old thing. I threw it away. It was cracked, Amelia. Unhygienic. Like my entire existence was a biohazard." That's when I knew. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't live in his antiseptic world, constantly tiptoeing around his OCD tendencies, feeling like I was suffocating under the weight of his expectations. I told Chloe everything over lattes at David's coffee shop. Chloe, my best friend since kindergarten, had always been my voice of reason and occasionally my partner in crime. "He threw away your mug," she shrieked, nearly spitting out her latte. "That's it, Operation Petty Revenge." As ago I laughed, but a seed of defiance had already been planted. "I can't just sabotage his life, Chloe." "Why not?" she countered, raising an eyebrow. "He's sabotaging yours. Think of it as rebalancing the karmic scales." I started small. I subtly changed the settings on his alarm clock, so instead of waking up to NPR, he was greeted by a blast of death metal at 5:30 a.m. I accidentally misplaced his important documents, sending him into a frantic search before a crucial meeting. I even, and I'm not proud of this, rearranged his meticulously organized spice rack, alphabetizing them backwards. It was childish, I know, but it felt good. A tiny act of rebellion in my increasingly controlled existence. Meanwhile, I started looking for a new apartment. Something small, something quirky, something me. I spent weeks scrolling through listings, enduring awkward viewings, and filling out endless applications. Finally, I found it a tiny one-bedroom in an older building, with exposed brick walls and a balcony overlooking a surprisingly green courtyard. It was perfect. I signed the lease without telling Ethan. I wanted to surprise him, not with a reconciliation, but with my departure. The day I moved out was dramatic. I packed my belongings while he was at work, carefully boxing up my artwork, my books, my vintage treasures. When he came home, he found me standing in the middle of the living room, surrounded by boxes. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice tight. "I'm leaving," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He stared at me, his face a mixture of disbelief and confusion. "Leaving? Where are you going?" "I got my own place," I said, gesturing towards the boxes. "I can't live like this anymore, Ethan. I can't live according to your rules." He launched into his usual defense, telling me that he was only trying to help, that I was too chaotic, too disorganized, that I needed someone to bring order to my life. "No, Ethan," I interrupted. "I don't need order. I need freedom. And I need to be myself." The move was exhilarating. My new apartment was small, but it was mine. I painted the walls vibrant colors, hung my artwork, and filled the space with my beloved vintage finds. I worked when I felt inspired, ate when I was hungry, and left my coffee mugs wherever I damn well pleased. Ethan tried to win me back. He sent flowers, left voicemails begging me to reconsider, even showed up at my apartment unannounced, promising to change. But it was too late. The damage was done. The chipped mug had been a symbol, not just of my disorder, but of his inability to accept me for who I was. Then came the news from our mutual friend. Ethan had been complaining about me, telling everyone how irresponsible and chaotic I was, how I couldn't manage my finances, how he had to pick up after me constantly. That's when the petty revenge took a turn. I ran into Ethan's boss, Mr. Henderson, at David's coffee shop. David, a burly guy with a handlebar mustache and a surprisingly gentle demeanor, had become my unofficial therapist during this whole ordeal. He knew everything. "Mr. Henderson," I said, feigning surprise. "Fancy seeing you here. I didn't know you lived around here," he nodded politely, just grabbing a quick coffee before heading to the office. "Are you here working on your graphic design projects?" I laughed. "Say, Ethan's been telling me all about this new organizational system he implemented at the office. Apparently, he reorganized the entire supply room. He even labeled it all with that label maker and sorted it by date of manufacturing." The sheer dedication. It's remarkable. I always thought the accounting department needed a system like that as well. Mr. Henderson's eyebrows shot up. He didn't say anything, but his expression was priceless. I could practically see the gears turning in his head. The next day, Chloe called, practically bursting with laughter. "Did you hear about Ethan?" Apparently, Mr. Henderson had called Ethan into his office and had a very stern talk with him about prioritizing company responsibilities and avoiding unnecessary micromanagement. Ethan had been forced to undo his entire organizational masterpiece in the supply room. I admit, a wave of satisfaction washed over me. Was it petty? Absolutely. But it was also incredibly liberating. Life in my new apartment was good. I was thriving creatively, attracting new clients, and gaining recognition for my work. I even started a small garden on my balcony, growing herbs and vegetables. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Davison, a sweet woman with a mischievous twinkle in her eye, took me under her wing. She taught me about gardening, shared stories about her life, and offered a comforting ear whenever I needed it. One evening, Ethan showed up at my door looking haggard and defeated. "Amelia," he said, his voice cracking. I messed up. I was controlling. I know. I'm so sorry." I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw a glimmer of genuine regret in his eyes, but it wasn't enough. "Ethan," I said gently, "I appreciate the apology, but it's too late. We're just too different. I need to be with someone who loves my chaos, not tries to fix it." He nodded slowly, tears welling up in his eyes. "I understand," he whispered. "I hope you find that." He left, and I closed the door, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. A few weeks later, I was showcasing my work at a local art fair. People were admiring my designs, complimenting my creativity, and even buying my prints. I felt alive, energized, and completely myself. As I was packing up my booth, I saw Ethan walking by, looking lost and uncomfortable. He was with Sarah, a coworker from his office. Sarah looped her arm through his, and he gave her a weak smile. I watched them walk away, feeling a pang of something I couldn't quite identify. Pity, sadness, maybe a little bit of both. Back at my apartment, I watered my plants on the balcony, the city lights twinkling in the distance. The air was filled with the scent of basil and rosemary, and the gentle hum of the city lulled me into a sense of peace. I smiled, thinking about the chipped mug, the spice rack, the death metal alarm clock. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about finding myself, about reclaiming my life, about embracing my own beautiful, messy, perfectly imperfect self. And that, I realized, was the sweetest revenge of all.